All right. Thank you everyone for giving your time for my presentation today. I am Himanshoo. I work as a technical architect with Accenture. Today I'm going to present my solution for greenhouse recycling. Now, greenhouse recycling is a waste disposal services company. They primarily look into industrial and medical waste. They have got around 150 offices across the country and 300 disposal facilities. Currently, they are serving 200,000 customers and they're looking at a 5% year-on-year growth in the next 5 years. The reason they're looking for a digital transformation is they're looking to remove all the paper-based systems and fill in the gaps in the automation and integration. And they're also looking to provide a new digital set of services for their customers. So some of the key assumptions I'll call out here, but there are additional assumptions which I'm going to call out as part of my business requirements as well. So some of the key ones are the drivers work at a regional level. So I have set them accordingly on the role hierarchy. I've assumed that they've already got an existing telephony which can be integrated with Service Cloud Voice using 10-fold package for bring your own telephony. And there are no regulatory needs to keep the CRM data separated in different orgs. Some of the program level risks which I have identified. One is mobile publisher in the landscape for mobile strategy, which could have an impact on a 4-month release timeline as it nearly takes 6 weeks for the listing to happen. And the mitigation for it is going to be that we start a parallel stream of mobile publisher as soon as the project starts to mitigate the timeline risk. There are autonomous IT teams. They are currently using a shared source code and having a lot of issues with that, and the conflicting IT and management goals are there. I'm going to cover all of these in terms of the mitigation strategy and how to overcome them as part of my governance strategy. So next is the actors and licenses. The first one is the waste specialist. They primarily going to look at the cases, the custom objects, and the contracts which are they're going to sign with the customer. So I propose to give them a service cloud and a sales cloud license. Then I've got support representatives. They are primarily looking into the new leads coming into the system and certain cases which are coming in, and I've given them a service cloud license. Then we've got managers who need to have access to all the data rolling up into them. So I've proposed a service cloud license for them and a CRM analytics because they would be using certain Tableau CRM reports. Then there are drivers who primarily need access to the cases, and hence I have given them a service cloud license as well. All of these internal users are going to primarily use the Microsoft Active Directory for SAML SSO, and in the landscape, I'll explain how it would be integrated with the Salesforce. There are a couple of sets of external users as well, one being the primary customers. I've given them a custom community plus. They're 200,000 in number and they need an external administration capability and hence a customer community plus license. The secondary customers are needing access to cases and their accounts and hence I've given them a customer community license. Both of them are going to use social sign-on with Facebook and Twitter as the two authentication providers. I'll talk about it in terms of how to set it up during the business requirements. Now let's have a quick look at the role hierarchy. The CEO sits at the top. Then we have headquarter managers. Then they operate into US and Canada, so primarily divided into those two countries. Then within each country there are regions, and each of the regions have regional managers. Then within each region we have multiple offices, and each of the office has their office managers, and then the waste specialists reporting into office managers, and primary customers falling in the under the waste specialist, as the waste specialist would be owning the accounts for which the primary customer users are created. Now the similar hierarchy would be there for Canada as well. Now let's have a look at the landscape from a core product perspective. Both sales and service cloud are going to be utilized for. There is going to be Tableau CRM or CRM analytics, which is going to be used for reporting needs. There's also Salesforce Connect, as there are a few objects which I am exposing as external objects. Then from an app exchange perspective, I propose to use SMS Magic to send SMS to the customers. There is S Drive for file management as a document management system. Then there is Conga to generate documents and DocuSign for getting e-signatures done, and the tenfold BYOT package to integrate the partner telephony into Service Cloud Voice. Now, from an current systems perspective, the lead capture database and the waste profile system, both of these systems are going to be retired. We're going to migrate the data from lead capture database into Salesforce using ETL. I propose to use MuleSoft as an ETL with DataWeave as the ETL capability of MuleSoft. It's going to it's going to authenticate with Salesforce using JOT, and there is going to be mutual TLS setup between ETL and the Salesforce system. Now, from an integration perspective, I propose to use an ESB-led integration architecture. The primary reason of getting an ESB in mix is that it will help me in transformations of my request protocol conversion. It would also help in error handling and any retries to be built as part of the integration strategy. Now, from a protocol perspective, the ESB and Salesforce are going to interact through Open API for external services, through REST for all the standard and reporting analytics APIs, and there is going to be a commit listener which is going to be used from ESB to listen to platform events of Salesforce. Via the ESB, we are going to integrate with the custom logistics system. There are 4 different logistics systems, and each one of them is going to be integrated with Salesforce. The orchestration of which logistics system to be called based on the waste profile and the region would be taken care by the ESB itself. There are also 2 separate ERPs for Canada and US. Again, the orchestration would be handled in the ESB. From a perspective of solutioning, we are going to retire the sales and support functionality of ERP, and the billing is something which is going to continue here. There is also an external website available that is going to be integrated with Salesforce through a web to lead form, which will be hosted on the website. We'll also have a Salesforce chat capability enabled on the website, and there is an analytics API requirement which I'll talk about later, but we'll expose the analytics API via Mule through which the website would be able to get the reporting data to be shown on the website. Now, the custom logistics systems has an integration with the driver touchscreen system that is already in place, and it's going to work as is. From a data archival perspective, I propose to use data warehouse, which would be integrated to Salesforce via ETL. We'll have scheduled jobs in the ETL, which would extract data from Salesforce for archiving purpose. Now, from an identity perspective, all the internal users who are set up on Windows AD would be logging into Salesforce using ADFS. I considered using Okta, but as there are no auto provisioning or deprovisioning requirements, and given that Windows AD is already integrated with the ERP, I have assumed that ADFS is already in the landscape, and I'm going to reuse ADFS to integrate with Salesforce. From a mobile strategy perspective, both the waste specialist and the drivers are going to use Salesforce Mobile. It's going to use user agent and SAML flow to for the setup of users and the OAuth. From a customer community perspective, the customers are going to be getting a mobile access through mobile publisher. They're going to use user agent and the social sign-on for the initial setup. Now, from an org strategy perspective, I've recommended to go with a single org strategy. And as I have already assumed, there are no regulatory needs, and we're looking at a unified business process across both the countries. And there is not a lot of large data volume, which we can handle. Hence, I have proposed to go with a single org. We're going to have multi-currency with both US and Canadian currency enabled. We'll set up USD as the core currency. From a multi-language perspective, we need the system to be enabled with English, French, and Spanish. We'll use Translation Workbench for translations. We'll use community translations for uploading the community-related translations. We'll use custom labels for all the translations on the LWC, and Visualforce email templates would be used for sending out emails in the localized language of the customer. Now, let's quickly jump onto the data model. The leads are going to be used to capture all the prospective customers. They would be converted into accounts and contacts. Each of the customers would have locations associated with it and waste profiles associated with it. There is a many-to-many relationship between waste profiles and locations, and hence I've got a junction object to handle that. We've got tasks which are going to be associated with the waste profile for the waste specialist and for the service representative on the schedules. All the contacts are of every customer are going to be stored on the contacts. We've also got financial data for the customer, which is going to be kept in a separate object for a sharing reason perspective. We've also got installed assets, which are going to be captured in the assets. Then all the issues which the driver faces from a pickup perspective would be logged into cases. We'll have case team members for drivers and waste specialists to work together on multiple cases. Then there are a couple of external objects in the landscape. One is the pickup request and the other is the route. Both of these would come from the location manage the logistics system. And I'll talk about the usage of these objects through the business requirements. All right, let's move on to the business requirements now. Just keep the data model handy. So the initial journey starts with the prospective customers reaching out to greenhouse recycling to register as a customer and provide their details. There are three options which they want the registration from. First is a website through which they could register. Second is by calling into a numbers which are hosted on the website, or third could be through a chat. So in order to achieve all three, I have proposed to use a web to lead form, which is going to be hosted on the public website already. Given that we are only looking at 1,000 prospects coming per month across the channels, that comes to around 34 leads a day across channels, which is way less than the 500 leads in web to lead per day limit. And hence we could go ahead with web to lead. For voice, there would be Service Cloud Voice with partner telephony using Tenfold as an app exchange. We'll set up 3 contact centers, and routing would be handled through the telephony, and the call would be routed into Salesforce via omnichannel. Then there would be Salesforce chat, which again we will use skill-based routing to chat to pass it to the appropriate support representative. Now, once the support representative has got the ownership of a particular lead, they need to qualify that lead. And as part of a qualification, they need to answer a short custom questionnaire to provide the details. So for this, I have proposed to have a custom action on the lead, which would be called as pre-qualify. When the support representative clicks on that, it is going to launch a screen flow, and they would be able to enter all the details required. Once at the end of the screen flow, we will give them an option to convert the lead into a account and a contact. My assumption is that all the details which need to be captured can be stored directly on the lead itself. Now, once a customer record has been created, a waste specialist would be assigned to that customer. So for this, I have got a record trigger flow. Every time there is a new account created through a metadata driven rules, we would assign an appropriate waste specialist to the account. Along with this, we would also do a customer user creation, as we expect the customer to log in and complete their application. Now, once a customer is created in Salesforce, apart from enabling that customer as a user, we also need to send certain details to the ERP system. Some of those attributes are mastered in ERP and hence no longer be edited once the sync with the ERP is done. So for this, I have proposed via the record trigger flow, we'll invoke the integration 1. This integration is going to be a remote process invocation, fire and forget integration via Mule. Through the record trigger flow, we would publish a platform event. Mule would subscribe to that platform event, do a callback into Salesforce to get additional details, and then it would create a new customer in the ERP system. Currently, there is a nightly job which syncs customers from ERP to the logistics system. I have proposed to retire that also as part of this project. And while syncing the new customers into ERP, we can sync the same customers into logistics system as well. Now, to stop the users from editing those fields, we'll have a validation rule in Salesforce, which would not allow anyone to update those fields apart from the integration user, who's going to be used to sync the data back from ERP into Salesforce. Now, once a customer has been created and they get a welcome email, they'll be able to log in through their social credentials. Once they log in into the system, they want to use either a desktop app or a mobile device and provide further details. They want to start creating a waste profile uh, for which there is a highly interactive UI needed, and there are a lot of rules around federal and state uh, rules which need to be incorporated as part of the new waste profile creation. So for this, I propose to use customer community. We'll publish a mobile publisher app through which the customer will be able to use the app through mobile. They will be able to go to waste profile tab. Through there, they will give a new waste profile action. We will override the new button, which will launch an LWC. We will use custom metadata for the regulatory rules to be built in. And at this stage, once the customer has created the waste profile, we'll set the status as pending approval. Now, once the customer submits it, it needs to be reviewed by the waste profile specialist by visiting the customer site. And as part of the visit, they're going to upload photographs and videos as well. So for this, once the customer submits it, we will submit it for approval by the waste profile specialist. Along with that, we'll put a task for the waste specialist as well to go and validate, to go and visit the customer site. To go at the site and click photographs and upload videos, they're going to use Salesforce mobile app. We'll use LWC for geo coordinates at the site, as well as the embedded S drive LWC component to upload the files directly from the mobile into S3. Now, once the review is been done, the specialist needs to create a contract which needs to be signed by the customer for that location to become active and that profile to be activated. So for this, on the waste profile, I have proposed a custom action which is going to be generate contract. Through this, we will launch an LWC for the waste specialist, and waste specialist would be able to select master terms while creating the contract through a list of master terms which we have maintained in a separate custom object. The contract record would be created, and we will have a record trigger flow to automatically generate a contract document using Conga. And along with this, we'll also create a waste profile PDF, which earlier used to be created by the separate waste profile management system. And at this status, at this stage, the waste profile status will be set as approved. Now, once the contract has been created, there cannot be any we cannot make any further changes to the waste profile. For this, there will be a validation rule that no changes would be allowed on a waste profile once it has been set, the status has been set to approve. Now, as part of the signing process, the waste specialist can either get the signature from the customer on the site itself, or the customer can log in into the community later and get the signature done. So for both of these requirements, I have proposed to use DocuSign. We'll use in-person signing envelope in case the agent wants to get the sign done there. And if the customer opts to do the signature later on by logging in, we'll use the embedded signing envelope of the DocuSign to sign it after logging into community. Now, once the signature is done, through the DocuSign write back, we would activate the contract. And at this stage, we would fire our second integration to sync the waste profile with the ERP and the logistics systems. As part of this integration, this will again be a remote process invocation fire and forget via Mule. We will publish a platform event which would be subscribed by Mule. It would get further details from the contract by calling back into Salesforce along with the waste profile and location details. And then it would orchestrate the creation of the data in ERP and logistics systems. Now, once a waste profile is established, the customer can then go and associate a particular waste profile with existing locations. So for this, on the location, we'll have a quick action which will launch a screen flow. This screen flow will allow them to associate their waste profile with all of their existing locations. Once they associate any new location with the waste profile, we'll fire the integration to again, which I explained just now, to sync the data again into ERP and logistics systems. Now, for giving the capability of customers to log in using Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn, we'll have social sign-on. We'll set up all three as auth providers, and in the community login settings, we will go and enable these as the auth providers. Now, once the waste profile is completed, approved, and is synced into all the systems, the customer can go and uh, do a pickup scheduling. Now, this as part of the pickup scheduling, they can decide the duration and the frequency of how many times they want the pickup to happen. The functionality needs to be there both on the browser and the mobile device, and they need an interactive tool for selecting the preferred days of week and time. So for this, on the customer community, we'll have a schedule tab. On the schedule tab, the customer will either be able to go and create a new schedule by clicking the new button, uh, uh, which would initiate our LWC component by overriding the new functionality, or for editing the existing schedule, they can use the edit link and it would also launch the same LWC component. As part of this component, the screen they will be able to select a location and a related waste profile for that location, and then a calendar widget would be shown to them in the LWC through which they will be able to select their preferred dates. Now, once the customer submits the requested schedule, this needs to be synced into logistics system and a confirmed schedule needs to come back from the logistics system. So for this, we've got an integration 3, which is going to be a remote process invocation request reply pattern via Mule. We will use external services as the LWC is launched as an embedded within a screen flow. We'll be able to use external services. The external services would then call the Mule endpoint, which in turn would call the logistics system. It would create the new pickup request and schedules in the logistics system, and the same response will be written back against this schedule record in Salesforce. Now, if for any reason the schedule cannot be confirmed, we need the schedule to be marked as unconfirmed, and there is a need to notify the customer via email, and the support representative will be assigned a task with a certain duration. If he is not able to perform that task within that duration, then the management needs to be notified through another task. So as part of the external service, if we get an error response, we'll schedule the we'll mark the status as unconfirmed, and task would be created for the support representative. The task due date would be used for the follow-up, and the email to the customer would be done via Apex. Now, once a new follow-up task is created, we will have another record trigger flow, which will have a scheduled flow action associated with it to create a follow-up task if the task remains open till the due date. Now, if the logistics system is to make changes to the schedule after it has synced or responded back to Salesforce, then the customer needs to be notified about that change. Now, my assumption is that every time there is a change in the schedule in the logistics system, it will be able to make a call out to Mule, and so that Mule can make an update in Salesforce. For this, I have proposed an integration 4, which is primarily going to be a remote call-in via Mule. Any change in the route, there will be a remote process invocation request reply pattern call to Mule via logistics systems, and then the Mule would create a platform event in Salesforce. Now, this platform event would be subscribed by a flow in Salesforce. In the flow, we would check this customer preference, and based on the customer preference, we'll use SMS magic to send the outbound SMS, Apex emails for in case the email is opted, and if the mobile publisher notification is needed, we'll use notification builder for the notification. As part of the mobile publisher connected app settings, we'll have to set up the custom notification setup for enabling the customer to receive notifications on the mobile app. Now, the last part is the pickup and disposal. Now, drivers are associated with a particular route, and they follow that route to go and pick up waste from the various locations. For this, to expose this in Salesforce, we're going to use the route external object in Salesforce to show that data. Now, when out on route, a truck continuously communicates with the logistics systems every 60 seconds, gives the current location. As a customer, I should be able to go and track where and see where on a map where the truck is currently and what is the ETA for my pickup. So for this, there is not going to be any change in the current system between the driver touch system and the logistics system. For the customer, on the customer community, they can go to a schedule record. We'll have a custom action called track pickup. When they click on this, there will be an LWC which will query the external object, which is pickup request and route, and we will use the lightning maps to show the current location of the truck on a map. I've assumed that the current location for the truck is continuously updated on the pickup request for it to be exposed on the Salesforce side. Now, if there are any issues during the pickup, the driver needs to create a case using their mobile phone, which needs to be provided to them, and they need a capability to upload photos or videos, and they also need to collaborate with the customer and the waste specialist to solve that issue. So for this, I propose to provide Salesforce mobile app to the driver. They will be able to go to case tab and create a new case. The new case creation button would be overridden with an LWC. In this LWC, they'll first select a schedule record, and from the schedule record, they'll select the pickup request, and the owner they'll become the waste specialist will become the owner of the case which gets created. We would also add driver as the case team member for him to be able to collaborate, and a sharing set would be used for sharing the case with the customer. Now, from a collaboration perspective, we'll use case chatter feed between all the three parties to collaborate, and to upload photographs and videos, we'll use this S Drive LWC component. Now, the logistics system also has a capability to notify the external systems every time a route or a pickup is complete. And based on the customer preference, these need to be notified to the customer as well. So for this, I have proposed integration 5, which is going to be a remote call invocation via Mule in Salesforce. Every time the route is completed or a pickup is completed, through the Mule, there would be a platform event published in Salesforce, and using the same flow which we talked about earlier and the notification settings which we've already discussed, we will utilize the same mechanism to notify the customer again. Now, there is a nightly integration between logistics and the ERP system for generating bills. I have proposed to make no changes to it, and it will continue to work as is. Now, let's move on to the data migration requirements. So before we go there, let's quickly look at the LDV and the archival strategy. So apart from generally the data is pretty low in size from a customer and the location perspective, but assuming for every customer we have 5 cases in a year, we are looking at a 1 million cases per year, which would grow to around 1.28 million on a 5% year-on-year growth. So for this, I have proposed to use indexing, selective queries, and skinny tables for the case which are in Salesforce. And I propose to archive cases which are more than 3 years old into data warehouse. We will have a scheduled ETL job which will use bulk API 2.0 to extract all the cases which qualify this criteria and migrate it into external data warehouse. Now let's look at the data migration requirements. I'll just expand this a little as well so that now customer leads which are currently in the existing lead database, they need to be migrated for last 2 years. The 2 key concerns here are that the leads in the lead database could be duplicate with the other customers which are already in the system, or there could be duplicate leads as well. So as part of the migration, I proposed to do dedupe in the staging. We'll use dedupe variables which we'll have to work with the business team to identify what are the key attributes which could be utilized for dedupe. We can also build in a fuzzy logic to identify matching customers from a lead, and we will dedupe the data within the lead data as well as with the existing customer data. The lead data normalization and standardization would also be done during the before the deduping. We will also ensure that the Salesforce customer master the external ID updated in ERP and the logistics systems. Now, as we are dealing with a good amount of data and there are duplicates with the existing customer, I have also proposed to have a data steward as part of the governance who will lead the entire data migration activity. Now, all customer accounts and locations data from the ERP, including both active and inactive customers, need to be replicated. For this, and their hierarchy also needs to be replicated. So for hierarchy, I have proposed to use the self lookup on account for building the account hierarchy, and the existing customer primary key from the ERP we would be utilized in Salesforce as a primary key for the customers. All current scheduled data from 4 logistics systems need to be replicated. We'll pick up all the active pickups schedules, and the ERP unique customer ID would be used for mapping it and in the external objects. Now, let's quickly look at the data migration. So from a systems perspective, there is also data to be migrated for the waste profiles, which I'll talk about. And there lead capture and ERP, we've already talked about it. So for as a pre-migration, before we begin with it, we are going to deactivate all the automation and validation in the system. We'll enable the deferred sharing calculations, and we'll collect all the files which are there for waste profile files which are there on the desktops and put them at a single FTP location. We will also enable inactive owner users and enable audit field creation as part of the profile for data migration user. Now the data would be extracted and put into staging. As in the staging, we would do the data profiling, the dedupe, I have already talked about it, as well as standardization and normalization of the data would be done. And then we would put the data into canonical tables, which would exactly replicate the data model of Salesforce. And then we would do migration into various environments. We'll migrate 10% of data into dev environment. This will help us validate our migration scripts and the usability of the data. We'll do 25% migration into the SIT, 100% into UAT, and production as well. Apart from that, any historical data, especially around cases which qualifies for a archival from Salesforce, would directly be migrated to the data warehouse. From an order of migration perspective, we would first set up the users as inactive in Salesforce. Then we would have leads. We would migrate the master terms. Then the account and contacts would be migrated. The locations would be migrated. The disposal facilities would be migrated. And then the waste profile IDs would be set up, which we will have to extract out of ERP system and create waste profile records with the waste profile IDs. Post that, the FTP, the files would be migrated, and I've assumed that the metadata of the file would contain this waste profile ID, and we'll be able to link that with Salesforce. Then all the existing contracts would be migrated, the pickup requests would be migrated, and finally the waste profile PDFs, which I've already called out. Now let's move on to the visibility and accessibility requirements. I'll just go to the data model. So waste specialists should be able to view and edit all customers and installed system data of their own customers. As the accounts are private for us and waste specialists are the owner of the account, they would automatically get an edit access to their accounts. We would on the assets, there is going to be a control by parent, and hence the waste specialist would automatically get an inherited access to assets as well. Now, waste specialists should be able to view all customers and install system data of other specialists within their local office. So for this, I have proposed an ownership based sharing rule. As there are 150 offices, we'll end up creating 150 sharing rules, one per office, and we will share the data as read only. Now, all managers, that includes local, regional, and HQ managers, should be able to view and edit all customer and service data within their respective areas. Now, if you look at the role hierarchy, the managers sit on top of waste specialists, and similarly for support representative, the HQ manager sits on top of them. So through grant access using hierarchy, the data would automatically roll up to all the managers as needed. Now, drivers should be able to view customer and pick up data for all customers on their routes, both past and present. So if you look at the data model, as the pickup request and route are external objects, I propose to use external CDC. Every time there is a new pickup request created in the logistics system, there will be a CDC packet published in Salesforce, which will be subscribed by flow, and through the flow we will create sharing records for the driver. Now, primary customer contacts should be able to edit only their own customer location and waste profile data. We would use a sharing set to share the account, contact, location, and waste profile data, which is all associated with the account. And we'll share it with only the primary customer profile. Now, there is also a requirement that for certain customers, there is a hierarchy, and all the primary customer contacts within the hierarchy should be able to see all data of account location, waste profile, scheduling for all the other accounts as well. So for the hierarchy purpose, as I mentioned earlier, I propose to use normal account hierarchy. We would use account contact relationship between the primary and the primary customer and the accounts, all the other accounts of the hierarchy. Through the account contact relationship, we will use a sharing set to share the related account data with the primary contacts as well. Now the support center representative should be able to see all data within their geography only, except for customer customer financial data. So this would mean that we are not going to give them any CRUD on the financial data. And I think there is a mistake here at my end. It's not going to be a view all, but we'll use two sharing rules to share it, share the data with the appropriate geography in the system. Now let's move on to the reporting requirements. The support representatives, I'll just go to the role hierarchy again. The support representatives, system specialist, manager should be able to run reports on sales activity, schedules, and services provided for all customers. We can use standard Salesforce reports as none of this data is has been archived or there is no archival data to be accessed. Hence, standard Salesforce reports should be able to meet this need. Now, managers should be able to run ad hoc trending reports showing the types of services provided and issues raised. As we are looking at a trend reporting, I have proposed to use CRM analytics. As part of the CRM analytics, we'll set up stories which will help us identify the key trends and give a visibility to the managers. All customer contacts should be able to run reports showing issues and all their status for all the issues they have. As they're primarily looking to view all the cases they have access to, I have proposed to use a list view for the cases. This will allow both the primary and the secondary customer contacts to have a view at the cases records. Now, customer contacts should be able to run historical reports both in summary and detail of their waste pickup history and billing history. Now, the waste pickup history and the billing history are coming from external systems. For waste pickup history, we have pickup request external object. We'll use an LWC and expose that pickup history record directly to the customers. Through the LWC, we'll be able to ensure that the customers only see their data. And for the billing data, we'll have a integration, real-time integration using remote process invocation request response pattern. Through the LWC, we'll have Apex, which will call Mule. Via Mule, we'll go to ERP, fetch the billing data and show it to the customer in the LWC component. Now, GRC would also like a report that can run live from public website showing the number of customers by type and overall volume of services. So for this, we'll set up a summary case report in Salesforce, and via analytics API through Mule, the website will be able to consume this and show it directly with the real-time statistics on the website. Now let's move on to the project requirements. I'll have governance by the side here. So the solution needs to support English, Spanish, and French languages. We'll enable multiple languages. We'll have a translation lead as part of the governance who's going to either work with external vendors or internal employees to provide all the necessary translations on a timely basis. Now GRC has 6 separate teams who are, 2 of them are managing 2 separate ERPs and 4 for the logistics systems. These teams have operated in a very autonomous way, and there is no central guidance or technical standards today. One of the biggest risks because of these autonomous teams is that they would be following different coding standards, or probably they would not have any coding standards, and their IT processes would also be very autonomous. So to ensure that we can mitigate it and bring everyone together, I have proposed to use a strong governance, which I'll talk through when I talk about the governance model. We'll have process unification from an IT process perspective across all the 6 teams. We'll do a scrum of scrum between the teams to ensure that every team is aligned with what the other teams are doing. They can share their dependencies with each other. We'll also use EARB to drive coding standards, as well as we'll use static code analysis tools to ensure that there is a consistency in the code which is produced by all the 6 different teams. Now, while some source code is shared, the testing and deployment is currently manual. There are several incidents where, because of this manual testing there, then the business is not able to operate or meet the regulatory requirements. Now, for what I have proposed is, first of all, we would go ahead with a source code control. We'll use Git as the source code control tool to ensure that instead of doing an org-driven development, we do a source code driven development. I've also proposed to do test automation using Tosca and Jest and Apex test unit tests. We'll have test lead as part of the governance, who's going to be responsible to prepare all the test plans and get the automation in place. Also, to ensure that all the regulatory needs are met, we would also have a legal compliance as part of the COE as well. The sales management team at GRC would like to simultaneously release the completed solution to productions for all regions in the 4 months. But the IT team is looking for a phased approach. Hence, my recommendation is to go with an MVP based release for all the for all the regions in 4 months. Sorry for the typo here. And we will, there onwards, we can do incremental releases post the MVP. We'll primarily rely on the product owner to prioritize the backlog and identify the scope of the MVP. So this would ensure that there is not a lot of pressure on the IT teams. With that, we are also meeting the need of quick go-to-market for the business. Now, GRC would also like recommendation on how to manage the project to address project priorities, technical design issues, team management, and organizational issues. So for this, I have proposed Jira as the project management tool for all the backlog management and any application lifecycle management from a testing and bug management perspective. We'll use Confluence for design documentation so that all the designs are centrally documented at a single place. We will rely on the EARB and the design authority to take key design decisions from an enterprise architecture perspective. We'll have epic leads to manage each of the epics individually and be present in the governance to share the status with the stakeholders. And we'll have steer co as well as the executive sponsor. We will rely on them when it comes to managing the organizational issues. Now let's quickly have a look at the governance structure. We'll have executive sponsor at the top, the steering co, COE lead. Then we would have 2 key streams. One is technical, where we'll have the design authority, EARB, test lead, data steward, and system leads. Under business, we'll have POs and BAs. We'll have system SMEs, process SMEs, and the translation lead. From a streams perspective, we'll have Salesforce development stream, Mule to manage all the integration work, data migration. Because we are looking at a 4-month release cycle, we need to parallelly start on data migration planning. There's going to be changes on the ERP side, and hence the ERP team, the logistics system team to make changes, and the website team to make changes on the website as well. Now let's quickly look at the tools and the pipeline from a DevOps perspective. I propose to use sandbox, developer sandbox for feature development. All of these individual features will get integrated into a CI sandbox, which is again going to be a dev sandbox. From there, we'll go to SIT, which is going to be a dev pro. From dev pro, from SIT, we'll go to UAT, which is going to be a full copy. This will be used both for UAT as well as for performance testing. And then finally, we'll go to production. As we are doing a multi-release, there would be hot fixes which need to be done post the first release. We'll have separate sandbox for that. And every time there is a fix done, we would have to merge it back into all the lower environments. From an environment perspective, we will have, from a pipeline perspective, we'll have multiple branches, the release, pre-prod, SIT, dev, and multiple feature branches. Every time a feature development starts, we'll take a copy of the dev, we'll build our feature, we'll check it into dev branch, and then the code will move up, right up to release. If there are defects identified in between, we'll create a new feature branch for that defect, and we'll take it up till the release. From a perspective of various stages and actors involved in the development, we would have the developers involved. In the continuous integration stage, we'll have developers and team lead who are going to review the code. Then in the SIT, the QA and the release manager. On the UAT, we'll have additionally business users also working with the QA and release manager. From a tooling perspective, we'll use VS Code to do the development. We'll use Sonar Cube for source code reviews. And for performance testing, we'll use Load Runner and Salesforce Performance Assistant, which would help us define a plan for performance testing of all the LWC pages. Now, from a testing perspective, unit testing would be done in the dev. Then once we reach the CI, we'll do the unit and functional testing. We'll do the system integration testing in the SIT and the user acceptance testing along with performance testing in the UAT box. From a test tools perspective, Jest would be used to automate LWC testing as part of the development. Apex unit tests would be run when the code gets deployed to the dev environment. We'll generate Tosca scripts in the SIT when the functional and the system integration testing is being done. And then these Tosca scripts would be used as regression automation as part of the UAT. From a mobile testing perspective, especially around the publisher app, we will use Publisher Playground in CI for developers to test their changes. We'll use Publisher Playground for the SIT as well. Beta app would be utilized for UAT testing, and then the actual app would be released to the production. With this, I conclude my presentation. Thank you very much.